Franz Boas rose to the level of father of American anthropology. We have to know some background of this, right? This man. So, on what basis he became the father of American anthropology? It is nothing but his dedication to the field of anthropology. And how all this dedication started, in fact, started in Germany itself, because he was a German born American settled person, German born or US settled or America settled anthropologist. Initially, he started his career as a cartographer. Started as a cartographer. You must be wondering what is this cartography. A cartographer क्या job होता है? This is nothing but the mapping of some areas. Cartography deals with maps. You make some maps of certain places. So as a cartographer, this man worked in the Arctic Circle. Right, today we have these people like the Alaska and northwestern Canada parts. So this man went to USA as a young scientist. He worked there as a cartographer. He was mapping the Arctic and small dikes and all these lakes. Very small details also he was making note of and mapping. So while he was working there, he comes into contact with the people called as Eskimo, and that is a popular name, but the actual name is Inuit people. The Inuit people is the one. This is the actual people, but the actual name. But these people are also known as Eskimos, and the Eskimo name is also there. But these people never like to be called as Eskimo. So whatever is maybe the reason, but when he came into contact with these Eskimo people, he noticed that these people are very simple. They are tribal people. Basically, they live in some groups called as hordes, HORDES, and the lifestyle is very simple also. But they are living in extreme harsh conditions in minus 30 degrees, minus 40 degrees, in harsh winters. So this temperature can go down as minus 30-40 degrees. And in one of the occasions, one of the trips, he falls sick, and these Eskimo people take care of him. And bowled over by their hospitality and the treatment, Franz Boas becomes right. He starts developing interest in their culture. Who are these people? What kind of people are these? Why these people are living like this? What exactly is their lifestyle? What is the food? What is their political organization? What is their family like? What are their marriage practices? How they solve their disputes? And several other questions. All these questions kick-started a new kind of a role in him. Then he adopts. Because of that, he gets attracted to something called as anthropology. And as you have noted earlier also, we have seen like Tyler, he was coming from a brass manufacturing company, I mean the family. And Morgan was a lawyer initially. Later he became an anthropologist. Fraser was also a lawyer and also philosopher, etc. He also became anthropologist. Like that, before these stalwarts, there was no anthropology. Of course, people were questioning and they were taking some deeper interest in other people's lives, and of course, they were also questioning about their lives. But it did not become some kind of consolidated body of knowledge. It all the credit goes to these pioneering scholars like Tyler, Morgan, Fraser in classical evolutionist school, and as far as diffusionism and historical particularism is concerned, to Franz Boas. So, because of his pioneering work, Franz Boas came to be known as the father of American anthropology, and he also kick-started a great deal of interest in the fieldwork tradition, which went on to become the heart of the subject. So today, it so became that anthropology cannot be identified without fieldwork. ऐसा ये लेवल पे आ गया है अभी, ठीक है? तो ये एक पॉइंट है. And he rose to fame not only with his fieldwork but also based on some original thinking. What exactly this man was doing? I'll go to the next thing. The classical evolutionists were always talking about the past. They said the right people have evolved from some simple savagery stage. You all know savagery, barbarism, civilization. This is all known to you guys. And in the same, kind of arguments, they've also started comparing between the cultures. In fact, they have started putting every kind of stage of human evolution under the rubric called culture. हमने ये भी नोट किया था पहले. क्या था वो exactly? They were talking about some stage of humanity where they lived a close to animal like existence, that they have called as savages or savagery. Okay, second level, they were more advanced than the savage people, and that came to be famous as barbarism. And finally civilization. All these were what? Comparative stages, right? They were comparing today's Victorian, today means that 19th century Victorian age people with the tribal people in other parts of the world. In fact, if you remember, in that notes I have shared with you, especially Morgan's classification, or rather Morgan's explanation about the evolution of human society. In his book Ancient Society in 1877, he has wrote about all this, how humanity has evolved from savagery. Within the savagery, there are three levels, correct? Lower savagery or lower level of savagery, middle savagery, upper savagery. It has given rise to lower barbarism, middle barbarism, upper barbarism, and finally civilization. In that, he was talking about the examples also. Amerindians, Australian Aborigines. आपने देखा कि नहीं बताओ पहले. Just tell me fast whether you have seen the notes. Have you noted the notes in your notes or not? हाँ? आप लोग नोट किए कि नहीं? जल्दी बताओ. और अभी नहीं किया तो अभी ओपन करके देखो. So Morgan was in fact comparing his Victorian American or European populations with the other people in the world, like Australian Aborigines, Amerindian populations, and the North Arctic people, etc., etc. That means they were doing comparison. This comparative and historical methods were not liked by, wonderful, not liked by Franz Boas. So he opposed this. ये into क्यों लगा रहा हूं भाई? That means Franz Boas did not like this. In fact, he has opposed them. Okay, and he also wrote a paper on the critic of the. He has written a paper, the critic of the comparative method करके एक paper भी लिखा था उन्होंने. In fact, he was not happy with the comparative method. This is a paper written by our Franz Boas. Why? Because how can you compare between people who are different? That is a simple thing. Can you compare between dosa and idli? Dosa is dosa, idli and idli. Can you compare between biryani and pulao? I'm just giving food items so that you get connected well. Okay. Can you compare between one language and the other? Can you say, after comparing, can you say someone is less and someone is superior and someone is inferior? Is it fair? Absolutely, it's not okay. It is not okay because every time when you start comparing, the discussion comes who is superior, who is inferior. And when you get the idea of inferior, superior, you are suffering from something called as ethnocentrism. So you means Franz Boas is actually talking about the classical evolutionists. That's the reason he also opposed this ethnocentric attitude shown by the classical evolutionists. मैंने बताया आपको, देखो आपका बुक में भी है, आपका in the criticism we have noted these people are armchair anthropologists, ethnocentric people, and everything, like most of the postulates of the classical evolutionists were attacked by some scholar or the other in one method or the other. So ethnocentrism was also attacked. Why he has attacked ethnocentrism? Because they were comparing and denigrating the certain kinds of people as belonging to inferior or lower stages or lower races. In one of the comparative thing, I've shared that notes with you in Tyler's animism notes. In one of the areas he writes lower races karke bolta hai, savages, and they use this kind of language: primitive, savages, lower races. That means you are considering you as superior, whereas the other people are inferior. ऐसा कैसा हो सकता है? It's absolutely wrong and it is not correct. It is unjust. Well, so that is one idea. Then इन्होंने और एक भी बताया. That means he was against generalizing. In fact, against giving general laws, generalizing, or I'll write here, generalizing. What is this generalizing? What do you mean by this generalizing? Because these people were giving the what exactly is this generalizing? The general laws given by classical evolutionists. I'm writing CE small s, capital C, capital E, small s means classical evolutionists. The classical evolutionists were in fact generalizing, in fact over generalizing, and while over generalizing they were giving laws and laws, LAWS. See that kind of laws they were giving. This was not liked by Franz Boas. Why he was not liking? Again, see, when you want to generalize, you have to put everyone under one carpet, one umbrella, and you start comparing between them. In fact, what he wanted was not generalizing but particularizing. So what he recommended, so you can also write like this, x means against. So what he recommended instead, he recommended you please particularize. This is A, this is R, ISC. Instead of generalizing, what you have to do, you have to particularize. Why you have to do particularize, in what way? I'll explain in another. What is historical particularism? And if you notice these two words, already just a minute ago, you have seen the word particularize, right? And there is a connection between that particularized word and this ism. In this particularism, the what is hidden is just simple logic. Particularize. Some American fellows use Z. Either you write Z or S, no problem. Both are okay. So what have to be particularized? What was he against earlier? Franz Boas was against generalization. So we have put a cross there. No, he was against means into Mariamlo, right? And what he was sticking for, he said particularizing. So particularizing means पहले हम लोग बोलते हैं generalizing को समझते हैं. Generalizing means you are putting everybody in one kind of a scale, from small to simple to complex. You are putting every culture in comparison, in considering under one umbrella. That is called generalizing. Now you have to do the opposite. Why? Because not only Victorian culture is important, but every culture is important. Especially now which culture he is trying to actually, draw attention to? This man is trying to draw attention to especially the tribal cultures. Tribal cultures or cultures of the tribes. Correct? No, both are one and the same. This man is trying to draw attention of the scholars to study the tribal cultures, instead of every time harking upon or spending time on or chest beating about only Victorian civilization and all others are lower karke. Sabko, every time these fellows are indirectly they are actually humiliating or insulting them. By showing their arrogance, these people are in fact simply insulting the lower races. The so-called. Abhi lower hum log bhi bolne lage. Indirectly, because we are talking like them or we are talking about them, we are also talking about that the idea called lower. In fact, Who created all that lower, higher? Someone XYZ. So we call it as so-called lower races, so-called savages, so-called lower levels of people living in lower levels. Okay, this is one thing. So one recommendation he has said. Then what else he is saying? How this particularizing thing or studying should be done. Okay, in fact, you should study the particular cultures. Here, what do you mean by particular cultures? Tribal cultures. With the help of their histories. What do you mean by histories here? Again, you have to question this word as well. You cannot be prejudicial. That means you cannot show, because unless you study them, because you have not studied them, in fact, you have not done field work. Without field work, you are sitting in your comfort of the library or study room and you are talking about the world over. How can your judgment be correct? आप कभी फील्ड में गए नहीं, आपको क्या मालूम उनके बारे में? हाँ, what do you know about them? And you start writing black and white about them. You have forgot to see the bright colors, the life they have. In fact, their lives are far better than our lives. Okay, कितना मतलब ऐड करते चले जा सकते हो. That means when you're talking about the particular cultures, in fact, after studying them about the particular cultures, you realize that they have a very rich history. They have a very rich culture. Their culture is because of their adaptation to their environment. They have their attachment to their mountains, their forests. They have their seas and lakes. They have the cultural bond with their people. They have social connections, which in the West people we don't have much. Their kinship bonds are stronger. Culture is unique. Every culture is unique. Why it is unique? Because every culture is a product of its own history. See, if a short note comes, all यही point बस simply आपको copy paste करना है बस. But you have to internalize it first. आपको मतलब you have to process it, then write. Don't just blindly copy and paste. Okay, of its own history. Naturally, when you say history, automatically geography also gets added. So first thing he said very clearly is about history. In fact, Boaz did not give any theory per se, right? He did not give any theory per se. He just his ideas per se, matlab on his own. He did not want, okay, look, I am saying all this and it will become a theory. I am giving historical particularism करके उन्होंने नहीं बोला है. So he was giving lectures and lectures in his Columbia University because he helped establish the Department of Anthropology in Columbia University, New York. So in that Columbia University, through his lectures and through his work, this man has created dozens of anthropologists. So while teaching his students, he shared all these ideas. आप ही समझ लो, आप लोग मेरे students ऐसा बैठे हो. Now go back about 100 years back. In 1910, 1900 and all that, during the first decade of the 20th century, he was talking about all this. I am Franz Boas here, standing here, and you guys are sitting as my students, and I am talking about my experiences among the Eskimo, among the Kwakiatul, among other Indian communities, American Indian communities. I told you who are Indians. Whenever Americans are talking about the tribal people in America, they always use the word Indian. So don't get carried away by the term Indian. So you need to know the context in which the word Indian is used. So when he worked about these Indians in northern part of or northwestern part of Canada, and he wrote several books on them. Then all those became the basis for his lectures. So while giving his lectures and presenting his papers and and writing about all his knowledge. This man was speaking like this: no culture is inferior, no culture is superior. In fact, every culture is not same. We cannot use the same also. Every culture is unique because that culture is a product of its own unique history, right? And your history and my history are not same. I am like this because of my history. You are like that because of your history. आपका एक हिस्ट्री होगा, मेरा एक हिस्ट्री होगा, उसका एक हिस्ट्री होगा, और किसी और का ट्राइबल पीपल का एक हिस्ट्री होगा, एंड सिविलाइज्ड पीपल का हिस्ट्री एक होगा. So how can you club them together and put them in a ladder, in an evolutionary line, that to one line only, as if there are no different lines? Everybody has to pass from savagery through barbarism to civilization. It's absolutely not acceptable to Franz Boas. It is in fact the ideas of Boaz collected and popularized by his students and others, by his students and other followers, that it became famous as historical particularism, and other followers or others. His body of ideas came to be known as, right, historical particularism. HP means historical particularism. Well, Bose also has, as I told you, he was instrumental. I mean, we are talking about the contributions also. We are clubbing everything. We are not isolating Bose from his ism, because there is no ism given by Bose. It was just his ideas which got collected by his students and popularized as historical particularism. But that's the reason we are, clubbing all the contributions of Bose plus his ideas. In that regard, we have noted earlier that Boaz established the Department of Anthropology. This is B, sorry. Established the Department of Anthropology in the Columbia University. Before that, anthropology was not so popular in America. People are just giving some theories, they were exchanging ideas in the folk societies in New York and other cities. But anthropology department was not there. So, which university is that? Columbia University, New York. And he has been instrumental in creating a battery of students, like dozens of students, and they became very popular in the coming days, and that baton continued after him also, right? So this man is also known for dividing the subject matter. He divided, or rather he has introduced something like, four field approach in anthropology. What is this four field approach? In the initial class, perhaps I told you that anthropology is divided into, right, four major subdivisions. What are those major subdivisions? These major subdivisions or major divisions are nothing but social, cultural. Those days he never used social, but he simply used cultural anthropology. Then he wrote about physical anthropology, then archaeological anthropology, and linguistic anthropology. Boaz also talked about something called as inductive method. You can write like this: Boaz advocated and followed, not just advocated. Advocated means is suggested. Okay, advocated and followed something called as an inductive method. Inductive method. Instead of a deductive method. So what do you mean by these points? Inductive method क्या होती है and deductive methods. That first I need to complete that. Then we can go for criticism. So these points are very interesting, right? These are very important for the exam angle also, because in some books this inductive deductive was not given. What do you mean by inductive method? First we will talk about deductive method. Kuch bhi, anything is okay. Deductive method means when someone or a thinker or a scholar with someone um, does a work, right? Does a work or does a any kind of research, does a research work, better you write research work, or he conducts research based on based on an already existing theory. An already existing theory. That means there is one theory that is there, and based on that theory, that person is working. That means there is one path that is already laid out. You just follow the path and you add some more to it. That's it. That is called the deductive method. What is deductive method? There is already one theory. The theory may be not just a theory. It may be right. It may be concept also. It may be a law also. It may be a principle also. It may be a doctrine also. All are synonymous words. Some people even use the word doctrine. Doctrine of lapse. Okay. Whatever may be the word, the idea is already one idea is there, and you simply are following that idea and you are adding your research to that. That is called as theory. I mean, deductive method. And since Boaz said no theory, why are you giving a law? Why are you giving laws? I'm against the laws, and I am also not giving any law, because instead of giving laws, I believe in doing the field work first. So मेरा क्या है? Mine is inductive method, but because inductive method is induced from the field work. So this can be understood as from the lab to land, something like that. It can be understood as a lab to land. So you have some idea, you have based on the idea you are going to into the field. So in other words, from the theory to the practice or field. ठीक है, first theory होता है, then practical होता है. Just like in our school college days. Because directly if someone starts teaching practical, people may not understand. But in case of humans, we are talking about cultures. We cannot follow any theory because you cannot put them in a generalized law. उनको कोई law apply करके हम लोग treat नहीं कर सकते हैं, because they are individually unique. And when Boaz opposed this, he has supported this inductive method. Instead of following a deductive method, Boaz supported an inductive method, and this method is exactly reverse of that. It is from practice to theory, something like reverse, or from land to lab, or from it is something like experience, not just some theory. First you experience that, and because it is based on experience, this is also known as empirical. These are some technical words you have to know. So he followed this empirical method or inductive method. Criticism. What is a criticism? Major point of criticism was, number one, Boaz did not give a theory. He was criticized for not giving a theory. अरे तुम इतना बड़ा anthropologist है भाई, why you have not given a theory? You could have given a theory, no? I would have enjoyed it. I mean, I'm just kidding, but this is the way people said. You have so much kind of university, you have a department, you have done field work, you have produced, I trained dozens of students. You could have easily given a theory, but he said, no, I don't want to give. In fact, my aim was not to give in a theory, because theories means, according to me, it is generalizing. I don't want to generalize. This man bluntly said. Number two, major criticism was, he was collecting data, like too much data collection. Too much data collection happened, and he himself collected like hundreds and hundreds of artifacts and data. Too much data collection, and that is without coming to any conclusion. ये भी ज़्यादा हो गया actually. So when he is, this is actually valid criticism. When you want to collect data, fine, it's okay, but how? What is, where is the limits? How far and how long you'll be collecting data without there is a word for it, without collating it. Collating means collecting together. So without collating, both are actually rhyming. Collection, collating. So that is one thing. And thirdly, his stress on data collection or oral histories of the older people. So when interviews, done, I mean, interviews given by or interviews with elderly people. The elderly people. Why Boaz has stressed on elderly people? Can you guess anybody? You can use the title of the ism, historical particularism, and you can guess and come to conclusion. It reflected static domain, static dimension of the society, of a society under study.